So the Virginia election is finally done, and Glenn Youngkin has pulled off an amazing victory. And with this victory, of course, the Democrats have to now go through this long process of trying to figure out, of course, what the hell went so wrong with their campaign. I mean, it went horrendously bad. I mean, it was terrible. Not only did they lose the governor seat, they lost the lieutenant governor race, as well as the AG, as well as multiple just local small elections all across the country, actually. And this just was awful. This was just a red wave that just wrecked right into Virginia. It was amazing to watch. And the meltdowns have also been pretty amazing to watch as well. But during this time now, of course, Democrats have to figure out what's the blame for this? Why did they lose so badly in Virginia? And why did they come so close to losing in places like New Jersey? Now, you could simply just say, McAuliffe was a terrible candidate. I mean, he had that weird habit of just dancing at random times. He also, of course, said that we should have less white people in education. He said that parents, have no say in what their kids learn in the educational system. I mean, those are all major, major factors in the election. But of course, no, we're not going to talk about that. They could talk about the idea that maybe CRT isn't a good thing to be pushing in schools. A lot of people were upset by it. A lot of parents said their kids were coming home from school feeling guilty about the color of their skin. And, they'll sit there and say, they're just teaching about slavery. If the kids feel bad about that, then that's a good thing. The weird thing is, in my generation, we learned about slavery. We learned all about just the horrors of slavery. We never felt guilty about our race. And a big part of that's because we learned history, which is everyone had slaves. If you went to Africa during that time, you would see slaves. In fact, you go to Africa today, you still actually would see some slaves. You go to Asia, you would see slaves. If you go over to Europe, of course, you saw slaves. And guess what? There were slaves here among the natives. Before we got here, there was slavery. Everywhere across the earth has had slavery. So we didn't feel guilty about the color of our skin. We felt bad in the sense of, wow, that was a pretty awful thing to do, and saying that we have to make sure we don't repeat going further into history or going further into the future. But we never felt guilty about the color of our skin. Because why would I feel guilty for saying I never did? If these kids are coming home feeling guilty about the color of their skin, then they're learning something other than history. Right? It's funny, I keep hearing, CRT, it's not actually that bad, it's not actually that bad. Right up here, again, I got the book on it. This is a book recommended to me by someone who supports CRT, who says this is a great book to fully explain everything about it. It is horrendous. It is evil. It is awful. If you replaced the word white with Jew, you would make a lot of friends back in Germany. It is an awful, terrible, terrible book, terrible ideology that is based around the idea that, of course, to fix past discrimination, we must further discriminate against people going into the future. It teaches the fact that, some groups of people just have inherent issues strictly because of the color of their skin and society they were raised in. Just terrible, terrible things that, of course, kids are going to feel terrible about hearing. Of course, they're going to come home and wonder, is there something wrong with me because of how I was born? When they hear crazy crap that's in books like these. Now, of course, they're not teaching directly out of the book. They're just incorporating what is in the book into their standard lessons. But a lot of parents had concerns about this. But no. We're not going to talk about the fact that critical race theory might be something that we want to back off on. The Democrats will never. They're doubling down on the racism. They're doubling down on racial politics because the big thing they're blaming right now, the big thing that they think is the biggest reason why they lost this past election, is white people. Specifically, white women. So for those of you who haven't seen, this is kind of how the turnout went when it came to white women. In Virginia for 2020, white women voted 50% Democrat and 49% Republican. Yet in 2021, they voted 57% Republican and 43% Democrat. A 15-point swing. And just crazy swing, right? That's really substantial. And instead of looking at this and saying, how do we lose votes in this voting block? Which the idea that we have voting blocks based on race anyway is appalling in the first place. But that's how they're looking at it. They're saying, how do we lose white women? And it shouldn't be a big surprise. It should probably just be the fact of you're teaching racist ideology in schools, as well as, of course, McAuliffe said that we need less white people in education. I mean, that's pretty racist in itself. But no, the reason why they say is because white women apparently are now all of a sudden racist. All these women, all these white women who voted Biden before are just suddenly became racist between 2020 and 2021. So there's been a couple of just insane tweets going forward here. So we have this one right here, thoughts on the Virginia governor's race. White women did their duty and supported white supremacy. Black voters didn't work hard enough to save democracy and keep Dems in power. Critical race theory, American history, is white racist rallying cry. Which, again, if it was actually American history, you wouldn't have to call it critical race theory. You would just call it American history. Critical race theory is a particular ideology. It's not history. It just isn't. It's just not what it is, all right? If you don't believe me, just pick up a book. I might end up doing a video on this book just to settle this whole discussion, but it is not history. It just isn't. But they keep going forward. They have some more here. White woman voters are the foot soldiers of the white supremacist patriarchy. Blaming the patriarchy. Of course, you got some pink hair here. What's this? I want to click. Oh my god! I figured it would be very cliche, but this is very cliche. Yep. There's the pronouns, and there's the crazy hair color and all that. Yeah. These are the people. These are the people who are allowed to vote. Strange enough. Oh god. So there's also a couple more. Of course, Sonny Houston said white women voted for Youngkin so they could pretend slavery didn't happen, because voting for Republicans is inherently a racist act now. That's what this is about, right? Voting Republicans is now going to be considered a just racist act in itself. Despite the fact, of course, Youngkin is very much a moderate Republican. I can't really think of any real extremist ideology he might even have. Not even close to far right, to be honest. He's very middle of the road. So he says that parents should have a voice in their kids' education. Yeah, that's middle of the road. I don't see how that's extremist in any way, shape, or form. Saying that, of course, we shouldn't teach racial ideology in school. Yes, I thought we agreed on that. I thought that's a big part of what we've established should not be taught in schools. We don't want racial ideology taught in schools. We just want your standard education to be taught in schools. It's not. This isn't extremist in any way at all. But in the end of the day, Youngkin is not just. He's not an extremist. He's not far right. He's very much just kind of a middle of the road kind of guy, as far as we can tell. We'll see what policies he initiates as governor, but everything he ran on was very moderate at the end of the day. Yet they will not let this go. Instead of taking responsibility for their failed policies, their problems, and we're not even touching the idea of course, how poorly Virginia handled the COVID crisis. We're not going to talk apparently about anything Democrats did wrong. We're just going to talk about the fact that, of course, white women, they started switching over who they're voting for, which means they are the problem. So just you wait. We're going to see probably a lot of a lot more articles going about the issues with white women in the same way we saw a lot of issues with, or a lot of articles about the issues of the white cis males of society. They're just going to start saying just white people in general here coming up. They really are, because this idea that if you vote Republican, you're inherently a racist, a white supremacist, or any of this nonsense, it's just that. It's nonsense. It really is. The left has been trying to find a way to unify people, and again, they want to get people out as they don't have facts on their side, so they have to get some type of moral reason to go out and vote. And so if they lie to people and say that these people are racist, that gives people a moral reason to go and vote against them. But this time the Republicans flipped the script. All right, Youngkin went out there and gave, well, the white women in this case, a moral reason to go vote for him by saying, hey, this ideology being taught in school is evil and damaging to your children. You need to come out and vote. This isn't just about tax policies. This isn't about economics. As important as those issues are, what we really need to talk about is what's happening right now with your kids, what's happening with our schools. And that gave people a moral reason to start showing up to the polls. Glenn Youngkin did a great job with his campaign. He stayed far enough away from Trump that they couldn't really attach him to Trump, but at the same time, of course, he didn't sit there and say Trump was bad in any way or any way at all, because, I mean, you can not like the guy, but his policies worked. I mean, his policies were great at the end of the day. I mean, again, I didn't vote for Trump in the primaries, but his policies, they surprised me. He was a surprisingly really good president. He made sure he had the proper distance between him and Trump, that of course, still got the Republicans out to vote and didn't polarize people who had issues with Trump's character. He also, again, made sure they gave him a moral reason to vote. This election was not about taxation, which, as much as, again, as important as the issue of taxation is, I mean, I believe taxation for the most part is theft. It's not what's going to push people out to the polls. It just isn't. It just isn't. I hate to say it, but it really isn't. Economic issues to that level are not what the normal people want to hear. They want to hear a moral reason as to why they need to show up. You know, why are you the right person for the job, morally speaking, not just logically speaking? And it sounds horrible. I hate the fact that we've gone to this feelings over fact mentality, but the reality is that that's what people want. People want to feel something when you say it. You know, people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And he did that. He went out there and spoke to these parents. He painted a picture for them of what's happening to their children and what the future is going to look like if they keep having Democrat control in the area. And he did a great job at getting these people to come out and vote for him. Education was his big issue, and he blew it out of the water this time. He really did. And Republicans did as well. And it's also worth pointing out, these evil, racist white women, they also voted for the lieutenant governor. This is a picture of the lieutenant governor. The Republican lieutenant governor of Virginia. White women also voted in her. This wasn't a white lash. This wasn't anything of the sort. This was them recognizing that Republicans, at this point in time at least, because again, I don't really care for Republicans that much, but Republicans that were running in Virginia had a better idea for the future of their state than the Democrats. It's as simple as that. And instead, the Democrats realizing this, they're now just going to sit there and try to play the blame game and try to figure out, okay, how can we demonize anyone who voted Republican in this election? Either way, it'll be interesting to see how things go forward. The articles are going to continue. White women are going to be, they're going to write articles about white women in the same way they write articles about, white cis hetero men. But either way, what do you think? Do you think they're going to continue these attacks towards white women? Are they going to sit there and forget them as a building block of their coalition? Or do you think they're going to try to reel them back in? Leave a comment below. As well as, of course, if you enjoyed this video, leave a thumbs up. Really does help out a lot. And hey, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Try to do a new video every Monday through Friday. So subscribe to the channel for more. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll be seeing you again real soon.